hard-hitting questions coming out of yesterday. I think one of them was whether or not the horns down is going to be 15-yard penalty in the SEC in the future.
That it was very important to finish and to collect the trophy and to win 10 games and win a game on New Year's Day and all those things. And believe me, we had a great belief in our locker room. We didn't have to do anything special, just be us. I was so proud of this team. We had so much fun, it ought to be illegal.
I said in my press conference back in December that I didn't feel like there was anything at South Carolina that we lacked to be a championship program, that we had everything that we needed. I am even more convinced of that now after being there for 7 months.
There's a report in the Houston Chronicle that Texas and Oklahoma are inquiring about joining the SEC.
I bet they would.
War Eagle. Feels good to say that.
All right. I didn't even remember that 12 years ago, but now that you say that, because I believe there was something about someone didn't have Tebowed first team all SEC, and as usual I was accused of that, so I brought my ballot to show everyone, to show Urban.
Hey buddy, this beer's for you, Mike, and cousin Shane. That SEC podcast loves the Pirate, and the Pirate loves that SEC podcast. Hail State.
Welcome in to the latest episode of that SEC podcast. I'm your host, Michael Bratton. I go by SEC Mike on Twitter. And no surprise, it happened again. I gotta know better at this point in time to not promise cousin Shane back on the show because, hey, as soon as I do that, he backs out. That's what happened yet again, and we finally got our SEC East over and unders to discuss. But no worry, he's promised this time. He's going to be on the next episode. I'm going to share these numbers here in just a minute, but our SEC West over under talk, that was a great discussion. So we're going to do the same for the SEC East on the next episode. But for this one, reached out to my buddy Brian Stultz, covers the Auburn Tigers for Auburn Sports, and he's going to give us a recap of what happened on the Plains this spring. Like I said, we got some over-unders, we've got some week 1 gambling lines, and we've also got a little bit of news and notes around the SEC. So this is going to be a loaded show, should be a lot of fun. But before we get to all that news and notes, hey, if we can, we'd love to start with something fun. And this was pretty interesting. I mean, this certainly caught my attention here, but Coach O made the trip up to Notre Dame to see the first-year head coach Marcus Freeman coaching up the Fighting Irish, who, of course, replaced Brian Kelly. And Coach O tried to hire Marcus Freeman heading into his final season there. He said no, of course, and he had to hire Duranta Jones, who I thought by the end of his first season in Baton Rouge, he was doing a hell of a job for the Tigers defense. But interestingly, when Brian Kelly got the job, tried to hire Marcus Freeman once again there at LSU. But, of course, you're not going to turn down a head coaching job to be a SEC defensive coordinator. So that explains why Coach O was at Notre Dame, the connection there with Marcus Freeman. But some pretty interesting comments here. Maybe he didn't mean anything by it, but just kind of caught my attention for sure. So let's kick it over to Coach O talking to the Notre Dame team here during spring practice.
What a tremendous university you have here. What a great coach and what a great coaching staff you have. Some of the best players in the country are right here in this group. I don't know when it's going to happen, but with this staff, this team, y'all going to win it all. You're going to pick up the trophy. All right, when it's going to happen, I don't know. I can't tell you that. How bad do you want it? You don't have to wait for it. Why somebody else needs to be better than you? I'll tell you what. Physicality, use it. There's not a team spirit. Use it.
So for everything Brian Kelly has accomplished, what was the one thing that he didn't get done during his time at Notre Dame? Of course, win that elusive national championship. Now Coach O is out here saying the next guy, Marcus Freeman, who's yet to coach a game as a head coach, is going to get it done with this coaching staff, this team. And, I mean, is this a slight to the guy that's replacing Coach O in Baton Rouge? I don't know. I'm just saying. So it's just interesting to see this Coach O talking up the new Notre Dame coach with the old Notre Dame coach in Baton Rouge taking over for his old job there, his dream job, leading the LSU football program. But I just thought that was hilarious. But hey, on with the show. And like we've been teasing here, these came out on Tuesday. People have been getting on me. When are these SEC East over-under win totals going to come out from the Wynn Las Vegas Sportsbook? But I was just going by what they were telling me. Now they're officially out. And we are going to have Matt Lindeman, who's the odds maker for the Wynn Sportsbook, to come on to talk not only the SEC East, but the SEC West lines. One or two of those West lines have shifted already since we talked about them about a week ago here. So without further ado, let's get to the SEC East lines. And then, like I said, Shane and I, on the next episode, are going to go in a lot deeper dive and give our confidence levels for over and under and all that. But no surprise here right off the bat. Let's start at the top. The Georgia Bulldogs, the defending national champions, same over-under win total as the Alabama Crimson Tide, 11.5. So, of course, you're just betting, is Georgia going to go undefeated in the regular season, or are they going to drop a game? There's no in-between on this over-under. So, again, this only counts regular season win totals, does not count bowl games, does not count SEC championship potential appearances here. So, for Georgia, 11.5 is the over-under. Next on the docket, Tennessee. Not a huge surprise to see there, but certainly Kentucky. You can make a case that Kentucky, who just finished second in the East, should be there. But Tennessee, 8.5, according to the Wynn Sportsbook here. Over-under win total, only 2 games that they have Tennessee as a massive underdog in, Alabama and Georgia. Third on the docket here, Kentucky, with an over-under of 8. So just right under the Vols with just that half game. With, I'm sure a big part of that is the fact that Kentucky is traveling to Tennessee. Not saying they can't beat the Vols on the road. They've done it before, but that's probably your difference between 8.5 for Tennessee and 8 for Kentucky. We'll have Matt Lindeman on the show again to kind of give more in-depth thought on where they set these lines. And then here, this may surprise, particularly people in Columbia, Florida Gators next on the docket here. Over under 7 wins in Billy Napier's first season. We had Zach Goodall on the show of Sports Illustrated, allgators.com. That's right where he put the number 7. So pretty interesting there for the Florida Gators. And I can hear the seething anger from Gamecock fans. You're next on the docket, 6, which is right where I thought this line would be. I'm not saying the Gamecocks are only going to win 6 games, but I figured the guys in Las Vegas, that's basically where they'd put it. Over under 6 for the South Carolina Gamecocks. Same number you won last season. Again, this does not count bowl wins, so that's how many the Gamecocks won. I'm just saying, this SEC East is going to be competitive as hell with Tennessee, Kentucky, Florida, and South Carolina, and we cannot write off the Missouri Tigers, who I think the win has got Mizzou a little bit too low here. They've got that over-under at 5 for the Missouri Tigers with 4 games. The non-conference and Vanderbilt, Missouri should win. They're going to be massive favorites in those ball games. So if that's the way you're looking at this, the Missouri's only got to beat 2 other opponents. I think that may be the lock of the week right there. Missouri over under 5. And then last but not least here, Vanderbilt. This one I kind of like as well. 1.5. They've got Vandy as an underdog against Hawaii in the opener. They've got Vandy as a 2-touchdown underdog on the road at Northern Illinois. And believe it or not, 50-point underdog at Georgia in Athens. So, I mean, Vanderbilt's not beating Georgia. But I think they can beat a couple of teams next season. And, 1.5. I mean, that is just pathetically low. I thought it was going to be around 3.5 is what I thought when I projected these numbers for Vanderbilt a little over a month ago. So again, Cousin Shane and I will be breaking these down further in depth. We're going to go on a deep dive on the next episode. So we'll be back to break down these win over-under for the SEC East. And then on the next episode, we're going to have Matt Lindemann, the guy that actually set these lines for the Wynn Sportsbook in Las Vegas, to give us a breakdown. But, hey, that's not the only gambling lines we have for the show. Week 1 gambling lines from the William Hill Sportsbook out of Las Vegas. And here, this is where you find true value when you want to bet on games. It's these future ones. Once the season starts shaking out, these odds makers have a very, very, very good idea of what the line should be. I mean, they're just uncanny how they nail these things down. But right here, this is where you get your value because they just don't know what's coming with some of these teams. It's a lot of what they saw last season and all that. So, hey, there may be some real value in these week 1 lines, and we've already touched on 2 of them, but they've updated them. Georgia, 15-point favorite over Oregon in Atlanta in the season opener. I believe that number was 13.5 when they first put it out. So, again, Georgia, you're getting more points there. And the other one that I believe we've discussed before, LSU versus Florida State in New Orleans. LSU was, if I'm not mistaken, a 3-point favorite, now listed as a 4-point favorite, so that's moved slightly. Now, there's 2 games we have yet to hit on. They just debuted over at William Hill. Utah at Florida. The Gators favored by 1 point. That's interesting because, again, Utah just went to the Rose Bowl. A lot of people are going to be expecting Utah to make the trip across country and come on down to Gainesville and get them a win in the first game of the Billy Napier era. But good luck when that heat and humidity starts kicking up in the swamp. So there might be some really good value there with Florida because, hell, all you got to do is win by 2 points, pull that upset, and you get that win. Now, how about this one for Razorback fans? Cincinnati traveling to Fayetteville, and the Razorbacks getting that respect right out the gate. 8.5-point favorites at home over a team that went to the college football playoff last season. So just wanted to throw those out at you. Those are the only week 1 SEC lines from the William Hill Sportsbook that we have at this time. And as soon as we get some more, we'll let you know. And one more little nugget here of info caught my attention on Tuesday morning. I wanted to give this guy credit. I've had him on the show a number of times. He's outstanding. Adam McClintock, also known as the CFB Professor. He has put out a top 40 power rankings for, he's listed all 1 through 40, but I'm just going to list the SEC teams that he's got here. And again, if you missed those episodes, I highly recommend you go back and check them out. We're going to have him back on the show during the preseason to break down some of his projections. But what Adam does over there at CFB Professor, these are not just opinions. He has a computer model that a team in the SEC has used to help hire a head coach and many others that have hired assistant coaches. He has got clients at every level, at the Power 5 level, as well as the G5 level. So, he runs a very successful firm over there. But what he does, where these rankings come from, he's using his model to grade coaching staffs, efficiency, roster talent, and returning production, among a few other metrics. And he's including additions and subtractions via the transfer portal. So I just want to make all that clear. This is not Adam's own opinion. This is what his computer is saying, and he's just sharing it. So we've had a lot of SEC fans coming back at Adam for these rankings. So I just wanted to put that out there. These are not my rankings, and really they're not even Adam's. They're his computer model. But right off the bat, no surprises at the top of the list. He's got Alabama, number 2 in the country. Only Ohio State rated higher than the Crimson Tide, according to Adam's model. Number 3, the Georgia Bulldogs. Again, no surprise with that one. Now here's where things get a little interesting. Texas A&M, number 5. Them Aggie fans will be happy with that. Now, here's where the controversy kind of got rolling here. Number 12, Ole Miss. Lane Kiffin, can he do it again there? Get to that 10-win plateau? According to Adam's model, signs are pointing yes to Ole Miss having another great season despite all the turnover. Now, how about this? Number 13, LSU in Brian Kelly's first season there in Baton Rouge. That would be, pretty surprising if they were able to finish that high. Maybe I'm underrating the LSU Tigers at this point in time. But how about this? Number 14, the Florida Gators. Ooh, buddy. SEC East fans were not happy with that when they saw that. So maybe Florida really is that next tier behind Georgia to contend for the SEC East title immediately out the gate under Billy Napier. We'll see. But Tennessee, number 15, right behind the Florida Gators. So that's a pretty interesting 12, 13, 14, 15, all SEC teams. And then the last two rated by Adam McClintock here. Number 29, Arkansas. It's probably much too low for the Razorbacks. And then Kentucky, number 40. So no South Carolina, no Mississippi State. That's pretty surprising when we're talking top 40. I assume South Carolina and Mississippi State just missed the cut there. But I ought to reach out to Adam and see what he's got to say about that. All right, one more thing I wanted to hit on before getting to our interview with Brian Stultz of Auburn Undercover. Sticking in that same state, let's kick it on down to Tuscaloosa, where the Crimson Tide got a little bonus here, bonus addition to the roster on Tuesday because Vanderbilt offensive tackle Tyler Sheen, this is a guy we've referenced several times on the show, played in 10 games last season for the Commodores, got 2 seasons of eligibility remaining, an offensive tackle prospect that LSU was after, Kentucky was after, I believe Ole Miss was after, I know Tennessee was after. I mean, this guy had an offer list that was very, very impressive. He's continuing his career at Tuscaloosa, going to play with Bryce Young and company. And, this is a big pickup for the Crimson Tide because they got a new offensive line coach. They've lost both their starting tackles, and they just don't have the numbers that they're used to having on the offensive line down there in Tuscaloosa. And that is something that Bryce Young, hey, credit Nick Saban for letting his quarterback meet with the media here a couple times during spring practice. But the reigning Heisman Trophy winner was asked about this on Tuesday, picking up former Vanderbilt offensive tackle Tyler Sheen. Here's Bryce Young.
We heard from Tyler Steen today saying he was going to be transferring to Alabama from Vanderbilt. Just what's it like to add an offensive lineman at this point in the process?
Yes, it's really big. Anytime we can, get help at a position like that, it's huge. This spring has been really, really tough on our offensive linemen with us having the small amount of numbers that we've had throughout practice. I'm super proud of those guys and how they've competed, how they've worked. The amount of linemen we've had and the amount of reps they've gotten is something I've never seen before. And they've done it all without complaining. And I'm glad that, when spring's over, we're going to get Darian E. We're going to get James back, and then now we're going to add one more. So it's definitely going to help our depth. And I'm excited for him to come in. So, I'm just excited, and, I trust us and us doing the right thing.
But that wasn't the only noteworthy comment there from Bryce Young. Another position of need there for in Tuscaloosa this offseason is receiver. Now, they got plenty of talented guys. Of course, Ajay Hall in the transfer portal now. He ain't coming back based on, Nick Saban's comments on has no idea, doesn't seem to care what happens to Ajay Hall after whatever went on behind the scenes. But we know we're getting Jermaine Burton coming into a money year, leaving the defending national champions for Alabama. He's making a business decision there. His numbers should explode in this offense, going from, Stetson Bennett to Bryce Young as his quarterback. You got to think Jermaine Burton is going to be locked into one of the starting roles. But, Bryce Young comments there, pretty fired up about the receivers they have on hand. Well, the good news could be continuing here for the Crimson Tide because a receiver just went into the transfer portal here on Tuesday, and rumor has it he's headed to Alabama, so he's already got a destination in mind, and that's former Louisville receiver Tyler Harrell, who apparently was the fastest player on Louisville's team, and he had 18 catches, 253 yards, 6 touchdowns. Those 6 touchdowns led Louisville last season, so you're getting a productive player potentially. It's unfair to compare this guy to Jamison Williams, who, he just tore his ACL. He's probably still going to be a first-round pick. He was that damn good last season for the Crimson Tide. But if this Harrell can fill a similar role when it just comes to the vertical passing game that Jamison Williams was able to just torch opposing defenses with last season. If this Harrell can fill that role, I mean, that's just another piece of the puzzle for the Crimson Tide, who are looking to, and let's not forget, they're the reigning SEC champions, fell just short in the national championship game after falling to, of course, the Georgia Bulldogs. But, man, Alabama, they're very choosy with who they go after in the transfer portal, and we're talking about five or six key impact players that may very well all be starters that the Alabama Crimson Tide are getting out of the transfer portal this offseason. But that's enough Alabama talk for you Auburn fans that showed up to hear what Brian Stultz of AuburnSports.com had to say about the lessons he learned from going into year 2 of the Brian Harsin era after spring practice concluded this weekend. All right, we're pleased to once again be joined by my man Brian Stultz. Got to give him a follow on Twitter at Brian J. Stultz. I love his Twitter banner is worth checking him out just for that. His great sense of humor on Brian. And he, of course, covers the Auburn Tigers for AuburnSports.com, part of the Rivals Network. Brian, thank you so much for taking some time and talking some Auburn football with me.
Absolutely. Always my pleasure.
Well, I got to start when we're talking Auburn football. We have to start here with the quarterback competition. And I know last time we had you on the show, you were very high on the fact that, Zach Calzada seemed to be the guy that was probably going to win the job. Now, he didn't get to go in spring. He was limited. So, you kind of assume maybe it was TJ Finley's time to shine. But based on what I've heard and based on what I saw in the spring game, and I know you covered it for AuburnSports.com, Robbie Ashford making a move there. Do you think he has positioned himself to be at least in legitimate conversation for the starting quarterback job?
Oh, absolutely. And, he was pretty accurate on 8-8. It wasn't a typical spring game. There was no contact and things like that. So we didn't really get to see all of what he's capable of. And that's probably a good thing because, as Brian Harsin said, when things go live with Robbie Ashford, you get to really see how athletic and how elusive he is in the pocket. He was very, very, very accurate and efficient with the ball. But yeah, he definitely put on a show. TJ Finley, not so much. I think he kind of took a step down, and he's still being praised for his leadership this spring, but he's just not accurate with the ball anymore, but not accurate with the ball at all. With Calzada, we don't know what he's capable of yet, but I still put him and Ashford as the two leaders right now. We'll see more Calzada this fall once he totally heals from that surgery that he had. And, it'll be a good competition. We probably won't know until maybe game 1 to see who's going to be the starter. So it'll be something to watch all fall and maybe all summer.
Now, can you quickly give me a little the backstory on Robbie Ashford? Because I know he's an Oregon transfer. He's got no stats that I could find, and I think he was playing baseball up there. But my understanding, he's a local kid there in Alabama. Can you give the listeners a little insight into who Robbie Ashford is?
Yeah, he played at Hoover High School, which is one of the powerhouses in Alabama, and he signed with Oregon. He didn't see any action during the last 2 seasons, but he did play baseball for him. So, kind of getting that rust off of him, trying to see what he can do live after, not playing for 2 years, was interesting to see, and something they'll see, going into the summer and fall. But I think he has a lot of upside. I think he has a lot of ability. I mean, with this offensive line coming back, I think it totally helps to have someone who can scramble, and Finley's not that type of quarterback. Neither is Calzada, I don't think. But with him, he can, get out of the pocket, escape some pressure, and, that's something that will be needed from the quarterback in the system because, this offensive line, as experienced as they are, they're just not that good at pass blocking, and we'll see if he can come in and win the job.
Mm-hmm. Now, was there any red flags there from the spring game with real lack of success on the ground? Now, I know it was a unique format. It was a very quick game, and several offensive linemen did not participate, key offensive linemen, I should say. So I'm taking all that into consideration, but any concern on your level that, the ground game's not where it needs to be right now?
Well, there's a couple of factors there. It is a little concerning that they weren't able to run the ball a little bit, especially with Tank healthy and stuff like that. Got to also mention that Jarquez Hunter is out for the spring due to an injury on his I think left foot, right foot, one of the foots. So he wasn't in there either, and I think it was more about seeing what the quarterbacks could do in front of the fans and things like that. But yeah, I mean, if they can't run the ball with Tank Bigsby, I mean, they won't be able to run the ball with anybody. So there is a little concern. They want to go back to a downhill running game with Keeshaw, the new offensive coordinator, said, and they're splitting Tank out wide and things like that in the wide receiver formation and things like that. And so there is a little concern, but I wouldn't put too much into what happened on Saturday.
Now, it's interesting that you mentioned, using Tank more as a receiver. We did see that in the spring game. We know Auburn's got a lot of quality tight ends headlined by John Samuel Shanker.
Yeah.
But outside of that, I mean, do they have many quality receivers? Because the best receiver, just in my opinion, on Saturday was Sean Jackson, and I believe he's a walk-on.
He's actually a running back, too.
Mm-hmm.
Are you talking about Shed Jackson or?
Yeah, I'm
Sean
sorry.
Jackson.
Shed Jackson.
Shed Jackson. No. Yeah, he's a fifth-year senior. He had a decent season last year. He decided to come back. He is definitely the leading receiver for this team right now. He's become more of a leader too in the locker room, and hopefully he can have a breakout year. But yeah, the receiver position is wide open. I mean, you got Dawson, you have Johnson, you have Landon King, who's making the switch from tight end to wide receiver this year. A lot of thought of what he can accomplish there. But yeah, there's a lot of inexperience there, and a lot of potential for these players to make a major impact this year because they just have no experience at that position other than Shed Jackson.
Mm-hmm. Now, what can you tell us about Auburn's got a young safety emerging here, Caleb Wooten. I know his brother is also on the team. Everybody knows his brother there, but Caleb, do you think he's going to make an impact here for Auburn's defense in the defensive backfield?
I think from day one he's made an impact on this team. He's come in the spring practice, and I think the first time we ever got to speak to Brian Hartson, he mentioned that Caleb made it forced a turnover and maybe made an interception. I've seen him make a couple of interceptions in practice as well. I think he'll be definitely a player on the field for the Auburn this season. He's come in, he's worked hard. I mean, he has the benefit of knowing what it takes from his brother, Colby, who's defensive lineman, and I definitely see Caleb making some major impact for Auburn this season.
Now, I think Derek Hall, I think he's one of the most underrated players in the SEC. He's outstanding. Mm-hmm. But, Auburn really needs someone to step up opposite him to really have a formidable pass rush. And I'm hearing good things about the young guy, Dylan Brooks. What can you tell us about the spring that Brooks had?
Brooks had a pretty good spring. I would also put out, you got Iko Leota coming back and Marcus Harris, who also can step up for them. Brooks has been a pretty big name this spring. And, Derek Hall, watching him in practice, what impresses me the most is he's taking hands-on leadership with his team. He'll move the pylons. He'll move the tackling dummies to the right spot. If somebody runs a route or the drill wrong, he'll call him back. The coach doesn't have to call him back. Derek Hall calls him back, and he makes him restart the drill if it's not to his liking. So it's kind of funny to watch him grow as a leader. But yeah, Brooks is becoming, he's still young, still has to put some weight on, but at the edge position, they need all the help they can get because it's really thin right now. So we'll see if he can make an impact this fall.
Now, I think the last time we talked to you, Brian, I think Auburn was still searching for, to fill both its coordinator positions, and what they ended up doing, of course, is promoting guys from within, guys that know Harsin, have been with him for a number of years. So I just want to ask you, what are your thoughts? You know, a couple weeks into it now that they've got a camp under their belt with Eric Kissau, I hope I'm saying that right, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, Jeff Schmedding. What do you think of those hires by Brian Harsin and what that says about the Auburn program?
I think it's a smart move by Harsin. I think if he wants to win, he's got to win with his guys, and he's comfortable with those guys. And as you know, I mean, working with somebody that you know, that you're familiar with, that knows how you operate, is always going to be a good thing, because bringing in somebody else from the outside would have been, I think, a total disaster again. He likes these guys. He's coached with them before. He's won with them before. So I like the hire. I like the hire by Harsin because it's his guys. And if he's going to go down with the ship, might as well go down with your guys. So, how it will work out, we don't know. The defense should be pretty good. Now, the offense with Keysall this year, who knows? I mean, it all starts with the offensive line, like I said, and, that's a very, very weak spot for Auburn the past few years. And, but, when it's funny because when Auburn is written off, that's when they make some noise. So, it'll be an interesting fall to see if they can, make some noise in the SEC and, maybe get Harsin some job security here.
Mm-hmm. Now, when they make those promotions, so of course, then there's openings on the staff, and Harsin, to his credit, I think he nailed a lot of these hires. Christian Robinson has been he was doing a great job for Florida for a long time. Jimmy Brumbaugh's been all over the league coaching defensive line, a former Auburn lineman, and then Ike Hilliard, of course, everybody knows that name, 20 plus years in the NFL. Any early thoughts on those hires and how they could help Auburn on the field and in recruiting?
I'm especially impressed with Christian Robinson. We got to sit down with him a couple weeks ago, and he is just a bright man. He's very confident. He knows what he's doing. Obviously he knows what he's doing and where he wouldn't have the job. But he was very, very confident. Knows what he's talking about, how he operates. His recruiting approach is probably what's best for the program, because he can go. I'm guessing he can go into any room and speak to anybody and win their loyalty, because he won me over. So, but yeah, Ike Hilliard. I mean, any fan of the SEC back in the '90s knows what he's capable of as a receiver, but as a coach, he's coached at the highest level with some teams in the NFL, and having that experience at the top level, coming down to Auburn and kind of teaching these guys what it takes to make it to the next level is a very good step. I think those were home run hires by him. Also, like Rock Bellantoni, the new special teams and the edge coach. I've known him since his days at Washington State. He's a great leader, great teacher, great man. I think Harsin made just grand slam with all these hires. So I was really impressed with what he did with the open positions.
Yeah, and last thing I wanted to ask you about the coaching staff, Brian. I know you wrote this at auburnsports.com, but a new feel there in spring, because we're done with the Zoom interviews. You got to be in person with Brian Harsin. You talked about how badly that was needed down there on the plains. Can you kind of retell that story and just getting eye to eye with Brian Harsin and how that may have kind of helped him down there at Auburn?
Oh, absolutely. I think, Zoom calls are very, very difficult. You can't get a read on anybody. And since he took the job, it's all about Zoom. We haven't met with him in person once. And, it's hard to get, how Zoom calls are. I mean, you can definitely fall asleep or lose the attention span really quickly. But in person, he's very dynamic. He's very personable. If you ask him a question, he's going to stare at you when you make eye contact the entire time and answer your question. Sometimes maybe too long. He does have a lot of word cabbage there, but he is very, very, very approachable, very personable in person. And it was a delight to see. I wrote that it's a different Brian Harsin than we got to know over Zoom, because just meeting him in person, seeing how he is, seeing how he reacts with players and things like that, it was a delight to see. So, yeah, I wrote that it's a Brian Harsin that Auburn fans should get behind. That should happen. I think a lot of people will rally around him because of what happened this offseason, but the bottom line is he has to win, and that's the bottom line at Auburn. So, but yeah, I was really impressed with him. A couple times we met him in person, and I think it's best for him that he gets to go out there and meet with us and win over some of the media, I would say, as well, because that we can be your friends or we can be your enemies sometimes. So it was great to see, and I think a lot of people took that out of it. With that, it was very nice to actually get to talk to him in person.
All right, last thing for you, Brian. I really appreciate all your time, but how much of an advantage do you think it could be for this Auburn team right out the gate? The schedule is what I'm looking at. 2 home games, Mercer and San Jose State. And, considering all the moving pieces on the Plains and you don't know who your quarterback is, you're looking for help all across the board. Getting off to a nice 2-0 start before that big Penn State game, how much could that really help this Auburn team in particular?
Oh, absolutely. It's absolutely critical. This is one of those seasons where if they open in a neutral site against, Oregon or, somebody like that, it would be, it'd be hard to see them winning in a neutral site against a top team like they have in the past. But yeah, getting those wins against Mercer and San Jose State. San Jose State's not a pushover by any chance, but yeah, getting those wins, getting some good vibes and things like that, and then welcoming Penn State, which Auburn could beat Penn State. I mean, they should have beat them last year up in college, State College, but they fell just short. Yeah, and then having that at home, having a big time environment against a Big Ten team, but being 2-0 going in that game would be huge for this team because after all they've been through, after a 5-game losing streak at the end of the season, some good things need to happen to this team because they need it and they deserve it. So yeah, that definitely helps.
He's Brian Stultz. Give him a follow at Brian J. Stultz and check out all his outstanding work over at auburnsports.com. Thank you so much, Brian. I really appreciate our conversations.
Absolutely, anytime, my friends.
All right, so just want to say thanks again to Brian for joining the show. As always, man, I really appreciate him. He's been on the show a number of times this off season, and he always delivers, comes with the knowledge on them Auburn Tigers. So cannot thank him enough. And don't forget to give him a follow at Brian J. Stultz on Twitter. He's an outstanding follow for all you Auburn fans and SEC fans out there. He's covered the several teams in the league for a number of years. So give Brian a follow for joining the show. But hey, that's going to do it for this episode. As always, I appreciate each and every one of you for hanging out. And fingers crossed. I know I keep saying it, but Cousin Shane, he's vowed to be on the next episode. Going to be breaking down in much more detail these SEC East over-under win totals. Love to hear the big Tennessee homers' thoughts on these numbers. And then we're going to finish the week strong with the Win Casino's Matt Lindeman, who actually set these lines. So we got a lot of great content to finish the week out. But that's going to do it. We'll catch you on the next one.